me. I'm Matt Roy. I'm the Assistant Provost and Director for the Center for Civic Engagement here at UMass Dartmouth. I want to welcome you to our second annual Civic Engagement Summit. I want to tell you how excited I am to be here today. My excitement really comes from the fact of the people that we have in the room here. A broad array of knowledge, skills, abilities, and talents, but more importantly, we come together with a singular purpose. And that purpose is to build the social fabric of our community. So I'm really excited to have you here, and the reason why you're
here is to engage students, faculty, and staff in meaningful service. And I think it's important to mention that bringing our keynote speaker here today was, in fact, the suggestion of the community. Because we know he's admired by many, and as you've seen by our slideshow, he's actually inspired a great deal of work already here in the community. With us today, Professor John McKnight of the Education and Social Policy School at Northwestern. He also co-directs the Asset-Based Community Development Institute at the Institute for Research Policy at Northwestern, where for the past 3 decades, he has been helping us understand how to build strong, inclusive communities.
Well, it's a delight to be here with a group of people who are champions. I don't know, do you think of yourself as champions? Dr. Ramirez Sosa said, I'm in a room with people who are dedicated to the idea that a university's job is to educate people for citizenship. I think that's his job. I think it doesn't do it much anymore, to be honest. They're educating people for technology. They're educating people for institutional and professional roles. But the tradition of education for citizenship, I think, has waned in the last 50 years. And so you have a job. You are the champions for the historic and most important role of the university, which is education for citizenship. Think about the relationship of universities to communities. And the problem with our thinking about that is that it's easy to know what a university is. It's not so easy to understand what we mean by community. In fact, we've often gotten people in a room to say, tell us what community means to you, and the answer to that is as diverse as the number of people in the room. So it probably would be useful to begin thinking about this relationship, not by thinking about universities, but thinking about what do we mean by community. And I came to Northwestern University to start something called a program in community studies. And I thought, well, I wasn't exactly sure what they had in mind. I had something in mind, but so I went to the sociology department and asked them, can you give me an authoritative, useful definition of community? And let me suggest you don't do that. You will never leave the sociology department. Thinking about communities that were thought to be needy, troubled, often inner city neighborhoods or so-called dying small towns. And what we thought might be useful would be to find out in those communities what they were able to do to make things better and what they did it with. And so over 4 years, we visited 20 cities and about 300 neighborhoods, mostly inner city neighborhoods. And we went to many doors in those cities and neighborhoods and knocked on the door and asked the person who answered, can you tell us what people who live here have done together to make things better. And sometimes they would say, "What do you mean better?" And we'd say, "Whatever you mean." It could be better about health, better about culture, better about economy. So we got a lot of stories. And we continued that research, getting the answer to that question, until we had over 3,000 stories. Earlier it's called Building Communities from the Inside Out. It is the most read, I think, book on community building in the United States. And we've wondered why. Why is that? And I think it is because most people think about neighborhoods as places filled with problems. And our research says they are filled with assets. And that a problem is something you can't use. An asset is something you can. And so I thought, in thinking about community, that it might be useful to share with you our understanding, at least, of what are the basic assets in a local neighborhood that people use when they make things better. Assets. And let me share with you then what they are with my new graphic. I do want to warn you that you will learn absolutely nothing you don't know as I show you. How many of you have never lived in a community? You raise your hand. So I'm in a room full of experts. So all I'm doing is reminding you in an ordered way of what community in the small scale means from a resource perspective. So the first asset is the residents in the neighborhood. In the stories, there are 5 things people use. Sometimes they use one of the assets, sometimes 2. But the first one, the universal one, is the residents. Now Alicia is going to show you there it is. The first asset is the individual residents in the neighborhood. In the story, 3,000 stories, how local people did things together to make things better. The flower in that cake, the universal, is local residents. But as you can see, there's a box that the resident is holding. And the reason for that is that to say it's local residents is inadequate. Every story is about the gifts, capacities, and skills of local residents, and never about their needs, problems, or deficits. This is critical. And the reason I'm stressing this is most universities study in neighborhoods needs, problems, and deficits. They inventory them. They do need surveys, the quantification of misery. So it is peculiar that if you go and you ask people, what have you done to make things better, and then you look at the stories and analyze the resource base, that the only universal resource is the gifts, capacities, and skills of local residents. And beyond our book, I don't think you'll find to this day much research trying to define what are the resources local people have that they use that could be enhanced, sponsored, or supported to make things better. So there is a peculiar dissonance between the university and the community around this point.